Hey everybody, welcome to my very basic guide. In this episode, we'll be learning about the cruel world that fantasy people have to live in, and how only through righteous fury can the advance of wrongdoers ever be truly halted. If you ever felt the need to balance the scales of what you perceive to be good and evil, but always prefer a heavier hand when spanking people who may have wronged you, and anyone else who gets in the way of your zealous smackdown, then swearing the oath of vengeance might be the way for you. Far from the golden idealized dreams of what people imagine paladins to naturally be like, those that go down the oath of vengeance are usually warriors who have had great tragedy befall them, that they can never personally let go of, or simply have an insatiable desire to mete out justice, no matter the punishment or personal cost. It should come as no surprise that what is regarded as proper punishment in keeping with the highly variable tenets of vengeance will probably be a source of great roleplay opportunity and inter-party conflict, with many points of tension between what is right and what is less wrong with NPCs or even your own party members. On a more mechanical point of view, the Oath of Vengeance subclass really emphasizes the Paladin's strengths as a martial character that can rely on their more offensive aspects to quickly dispatch of their enemies in bursts of radiant light, rather than dragging it out as a battle of attrition, although they can easily do both. The Oath of Vengeance Paladin is aided in their killing intent by features such as the level 3 Oath Spells feature, which gives you some additional spellcasting options. Oath Spells gives the Paladin an expanded access to a variety of spells at certain levels that are thematically tied to the oath that you have taken. Once you gain access to the spells listed, you will always have them prepared, and it does not count against the number of spells you normally prepare. Starting us off on the Special Vengeance Oath spells at 3rd level, we get Bane and Hunter's Mark. These two first level spells do really fit the theme of a more wrathful paladin who wishes nothing more than to obliterate their enemies. Bane is somewhat difficult for a paladin to make use of since it costs concentration and relies on the enemy failing the charisma saving throw, which may not happen that often since a paladin won't have that high of a spell save DC assumedly. Hunter's Mark on the other hand is a pretty great damage multiplier for a first level spell slot, as long as you are able to maintain concentration over multiple rounds and rack up as many weapon attacks as possible. Hunter's Mark has innate synergy with Vow of Enmity, which is one of your channel divinity options, stacked on the same target, as that gives the paladin a really good chance to make the most out of that 1d6 extra damage and hopefully do more damage in the long run than a simple divine smite at 1st level. Moving on to the 5th level, the revenge-seeking paladins decide to increase their ability to keep their enemies physically closer by gaining the spells Hold Person and Misty Step. Hold Person is generally decent for full spellcasters, but for half-caster like a paladin who can't really afford to invest in their charisma stat too much, will make the potential paralysis from Hold Person really unreliable and potentially a big waste of a 2nd level spell slot, but it's still nice to have in the back pocket. Misty Step on the other hand is just a really nice way of teleporting around the battlefield that only costs you your bonus action, so being able to instantly close the gap between you and your target is fantastic utility, especially if the enemy backline is being protected or if they are on elevated ground, making it tricky for a normal paladin to get into striking distance. Rising to the 9th level, you remember to also pack in some buffs alongside your damage dealing capabilities with the 3rd level spells Haste and Protection from Energy. Both of these concentration buff spells are really good, but Haste being an iconic D&D spell for a reason. It gives the martial character everything they could hope for: more armor class, more speed, and an additional way of dealing damage. Protection from Energy is in a similar boat of being a really rock solid buff as long as you know the enemy that you are facing utilizes a certain type of damage, and being able to pick and choose the resistance will make you unbelievably tanky. Getting all the way to level 13 will give you some of the more bizarre spell choices in the form of Banishment and Dimension Door. Banishment is fairly decent as a potentially potent way of ending a fight with an outsider early by simply kicking them off to another plane of existence. And if the target is a native, then being able to create a reprieve in battle might give you guys enough time to focus on other targets and then ready the party for the banished enemy to return. But it does fall to the same problem of relying on the paladin's spell save DC, which makes it highly unreliable, especially for a 4th level spell slot. Dimension Door on the other hand is fairly situational and hard to really predict how useful it will be, but I guess it's pretty fun to have in case you and your buddy ever hatch a brilliant idea to get inside a fortress or as a reliable method of escape. Finally, making the arduous journey of exacting your vengeance for 17 levels straight, you reach the final peak of your Oath Spells feature with the 5th level spells Hold Monster and Scrying. Hold Monster is basically a better version of Hold Person that is applicable to many more creature types, but still is handicapped by a paladin's innate lack of high spell save DC, although the chance to paralyze a big creature may give you and your party an easy victory, so it's a high risk, high reward type of spell. Scrying is an extremely situational spell, and I suppose hard to use since a paladin may have a tough time finding a spellcasting focus worth 1,000 gold pieces that the party will give to them instead of to the full caster. But the scrying spell itself does match thematically with the idea of a vengeance paladin going to great lengths to seek out and hunt down their sworn enemies, using all the resources available to them to figure out where they are hiding and ultimately bring the hammer of justice down on them. Besides the oath spells that are unlocked as soon as you swear your sacred oath as a level 3 paladin, there are also the channel divinity options that are unlocked, which gives the paladin special divine powers that are thematically based off of the oath that you took. The first channel divinity usage that Vengeance Paladin gains access to is known as Abjure Enemy. It allows you to basically call out someone for being a not so good person within 60 feet of you, and your target is then forced to make a wisdom saving throw unless they have immunity to the frightened condition. But assuming that they are not immune to the frightened condition, and that they fail their saving throw, then they become frightened of you for 1 minute, or until they take damage. To give the paladin some extra flavor, fiends and undead creatures have disadvantage on their wisdom saving throw. While the enemy creature is frightened, its movement speed also drops to a static 0, regardless of any bonuses that it might have. Not only that, the frightened condition has no end of turn saving throw to get rid of it, so it actually makes your enemy a very crippling ability if the party decides to just leave the frightened target alive until the end of combat as a sort of neutralized threat, since the condition only ends if they take any damage. Interestingly, if the enemy that was abjured was able to succeed in their saving throw and prevent the frightened condition, they are still debuffed with their speed being cut in half for 1 minute or until they take damage. This is pretty cool since many save or sucks abilities that causes a strong condition such as the frightened condition usually don't give you anything if the enemy succeeds on their saving throw, so the fact that abjure enemy at worst still gives you some value for your channel divinity usage is quite nice. Beyond that, the abjure enemy channel divinity option is fairly strong with a huge upswing if it works. However, a paladin's charisma modifier may not be that high, meaning your spell save DC might not be good enough to get enemies frightened of you on a regular enough basis, especially since you only have one channel divinity to use. The other channel divinity option that you gain access to is Vow of Enmity. This is the ability you use when you want to fight a big target that you have to take down as soon as possible. You use your bonus action to channel divinity and mark an enemy within 10 feet of you. For a duration of 1 minute, all of your attack rolls against that target will be at advantage or until they drop to 0 hit points or fall unconscious. This is the smackdown button for the Oath of Vengeance paladins to use whenever they fight a boss or a particularly well armored foe. It is insanely good in the sense that there is no way for the enemy to avoid the Vow of Enmity if they are visibly in range. There is no saving throw, meaning that the Vengeance paladin doesn't have to rely on their charisma stat being high, and advantage is especially great for a paladin as it allows them to fish for more critical hits to get the most bang out of the divine smite. Both of these channel divinity options are quite good in their own right, but of course a paladin has to be mindful of when to use them, since you only get to use your channel divinity feature once before having to finish a short or long rest to regain your channel divinity usage. Although I think abjure enemy gets slightly overshadowed by Vow of Enmity, which is probably going to be the Vengeance paladin's bread and butter that they will want to save the channel divinity for in most scenarios. In keeping with the spirit of making sure that there is no rest for the wicked, the Vengeance Paladin gains a new ability at level 7 to help ensure that they will always be one step ahead of their enemies with the Relentless Avenger feature. Instead of gaining a magical aura that other paladins usually get at level 7, the Oath of Vengeance is unique in its selfishness with Relentless Avenger, being a self buff in your ability to stick close to your enemies at all times. When you use your reaction to land an attack of opportunity on an enemy, you can instantly move up to half of your movement speed as part of that reaction. Not only that, but the additional reaction movement does not provoke other people's opportunity attacks against you. Relentless Avenger gives you an unparalleled ability to either bounce between different opponents or to try and keep them within reach. It also gives the Oath of Vengeance Paladin the really interesting prospect of potentially being able to skirt around the front lines and get behind enemy formations. Even though moving half of your movement might not be enough to keep enemies within your zone of control, it still puts a lot of pressure on ranged units to keep backing up, potentially putting them out of line of sight, which can protect your allies. Not only that, but Relentless Avenger combos well with spells like Haste, which you get at level 9 from your Oath spells feature. So there's a lot of internal synergy with Relentless Avenger and makes it a fairly strong feature to be getting as a frontline martial character that always wants to be in the thick of the fight at all times from a battlefield tactics point of view, but also on a thematic I will chase you down to the ends of the earth kind of thing. Reaching level 15, your revenge fantasy dreams start having an impact on your very being, with it manifesting from deep within, giving you the soul of vengeance. When you decide to use your channel divinity to mark a target with Vow of Enmity, and the marked target decides to make an attack, the Oath of Vengeance Paladin gets to use their reaction to make a melee weapon attack against the marked attacker. This doesn't count as an attack of opportunity, so it doesn't trigger your Relentless Avenger, but it does gain the normal benefit of advantage on your attack roll from the Vow of Enmity. Effectively, Soul of Vengeance is like a boost to your potential damage output by giving you an additional way to smack your enemy on their own turn, with the added assurance from Vow of Enmity giving you advantage. This may seem like a niche feature on the surface, but the ability to more efficiently use a reaction to give the paladin additional opportunities to strike with advantage does add up over the course of many rounds in a pitched battle, especially for a paladin that relishes every opportunity to fish for a natural 20 divine smite combo on a beefier opponent. Finally, getting to the peak of Revengeance status, you reach the final form of your revenge-filled evolution at level 20 with the feature Avenging Angel. Using an action, you have the power to sprout some beautiful wings to carry you high in the sky and look the part of an angelic avenger. These wings give you a flying speed of 60 feet, which is quite fast and synergizes fairly well with the Relentless Avenger. The second part of your transformation gives you a big 30-foot radius aura that spooks enemies caught under its influence. Hostile creatures that start their turn within your aura or walks into it will be forced to make a wisdom saving throw against the Vengeance Paladin's spell save DC. ability. On a success, they are able to calm their nerves and reason to themselves that the person with giant wings going around spiting people is only pretending to be an angel, but on a failure, they are afflicted with the frightened condition for a 1-minute duration or until the enemy takes any damage. The frightened condition causes disadvantage on all ability checks and attack rolls when the paladin is visible, and also the frightened creatures cannot willingly move closer to the paladin. But on top of the normal debuff from being scared, the Avenging Angel feature adds on advantage for all attack rolls against enemies that are frightened. So basically it's an AoE Valve enmity that also helps out the rest of your team, which is a nice change of pace for the Oath of Vengeance. You can only use the Avenging Angel feature once and can only be recharged on a long rest, but the Avenging Angel transformation is also notable among paladins because it actually lasts for an entire hour, which is a lot longer than the standard paladin level 20 transformation, which usually only lasts for 1 minute. Taking everything into account, it makes the Avenging Angel a truly monstrous capstone feature that really helps the paladin get into the role of feeling like a holy beast that has come to smite evil miscreants. It gives mobility, crowd control, and additional lethality that benefits your entire party. It also has a duration that is long enough to allow the revenge-hungry paladin to maintain their ultimate form for multiple combat encounters if they're fast. And that about does it for this very basic guide to the Oath of Vengeance Paladin as presented in the player's handbook. The ideals of righteous vengeance can take many forms and can manifest in a way that is very comforting in its proactive stance of dealing with evildoers, or can be incredibly disquieting depending on the individual paladin and how far they're willing to go when trying to balance the scales of what they perceive to be right and wrong. In my opinion, the best thing about the Oath of Vengeance subclass is that it has a wide range of moral latitude that I can easily work with, giving many different types of characters the freedom to chase their goals in perhaps morally ambiguous fashion, while also maintaining a sense of principle and personal convictions. And as always, I hope that anyone who watches my stuff enjoys what I create as much as I enjoyed creating in the first place. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, goodbye for now.